33 million fallen angels didn't disappear, and they're walking right here on Earth with us today, hiding in plain sight.
This historic moment belongs to the people.
Influencing power and shaping our society.
Unwavering resolve.
Controlling the world you think you know.
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I do. When they hate, I create.
Welcome everyone to Pounders Quest. I'm John Pounders, and tonight is going to be an amazing broadcast. And I'm telling you, this subject right here is one out of all the years that I've spent researching this kind of thing on my other channel, just over a decade. This is one of the subjects that intrigues me the most and really helps me understand the way that the world works, because when you look at all these things, the way things are going on, it doesn't make sense any other way. So guys, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to have you. We are live right now, and so we're going to let people fill in for just a few seconds and get us something to drink. Hopefully you guys got some coffee or something. Maybe not. It's kind of late. Hopefully some of you guys are probably laying in bed watching this right now, and so, man, you guys could be doing anything. You could be counting sheep right now, but instead you're listening here, so thank you so much for doing that. Also, I love to hear where you guys are from, how you're doing and stuff out there. I know it's bitter cold here where we're at, and I'm trying to survive. I'm not a cold weather person. I grew up in South Texas, so cold weather is something, even though I've lived here for a long time, I'm still not used to it and don't dig it that much. So for those of you that are just joining in, I will be taking a few questions tonight. If you have a question, put like question in all caps so I can see it. And if you do a super chat, I will definitely answer your question. But I can't guarantee to answer them all because there's a lot of people piling in the chat, and there will be more as time goes on. So guys, let's go ahead and let's get rocking here. Let's talk about what we're going to be talking about tonight. So about 2 years ago, I did a broadcast here about the secret fallen angel, 33 million fallen angels, evidence of them being here on Earth. And so I've learned a lot in the last 2 years on this subject. Even though this show reached almost a couple million people, and I did several broadcasts on it on bigger channels, there were things that I feel like I was kind of missing through all of this when I'm looking at it, and I didn't quite understand. In my mind, I've always thought that Hollywood is, especially when I was younger, I thought it was this place where people go, yeah, there's debauchery, people have fun, they're rock stars, whatever. But I didn't really even understand Hollywood in general. I didn't even understand what it was. And as time went on, I started to realize that Hollywood is something much deeper than what it presents itself to be. It presents itself as this beautiful place where you can go and you can enjoy yourself, get rich, act in front of screens, and do good things. And when you're a kid, at least me in the 90s, MTV was getting started. This was an appealing idea for me and for a lot of people. I don't know too many people that were my age that didn't appeal to this, and still probably to this day, teenagers are still appealing to this place called Hollywood. But even in the name, it tells us what it is. For many of you, you guys have heard this before, and holly is the wood that most high-level magicians, they prefer to make their wands out of holly trees. And this is where you get Merlin's wand, the magician's wand, the occultist scepter, all of these, it goes all the way back. They go way back with these things, but this is where Hollywood originally got its flavor. And as you can see with all the Diddy stuff coming out and everything that's been happening, that this is starting to rise and surface once again. And I want to give a shout out to Manic669 for the super chat. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Very blessed to have you in the chat and for you to do that. Thank you. So with that being said, guys, there's a lot of different actors. If you guys have probably seen something like this, there's hundreds of pictures, and there's a guy that I'm going to be featuring here towards the middle of this video that is going to be talking about something that caught my eye, and some of you guys have probably seen him on Instagram and places like that. Maybe on YouTube and TikTok, he's very popular when it comes to this kind of content. But he did a video, and I think it was like a week ago, and it caught my attention because I was like, this is a subject I've talked about. But he put a couple things together and he's been showing things through different images that some of them I think are legit, some of them I think are, and you guys will get to judge for yourself when you see this latest one he did. But the reason I'm showing it is because it goes along with what we're doing. It's only a couple minutes, but it'll be up in here just a second. But this is why this study to me is so unique, because there's so many weird things about this just hidden in plain sight. And it blows my mind. And so I want to give you guys, before we get into that end of it, I want to give you guys a biblical backdrop for why I'm inclined to believe that we have angelic beings on earth that are fallen and that are literally wandering around on earth, blending in with reality. And I'm going to give you two different incursions that we can find in the Bible. And I'm also going to explain those incursions and why I think it's possible that both sets of incursions could actually be here as we speak, or at least one set's here and maybe another set coming at a later time. And I'm just going to explain that a little bit, because in the Bible, it pretty much just tells us straight up what's going down with this. And it's weird, because when I grew up in going to church and stuff, and it's almost like they don't believe in the supernatural. They claim to have this religion, the supernatural religion, but they don't have any belief in the supernatural. It's very, very strange. I guess, if you grew up in a Baptist kind of church or something like that, yeah, the Pentecostal will have the more of the spiritual type things, but they also go, like, sometimes they've got some other things in there that they shouldn't have as well. So it's just a hodgepodge. But the point being that the Bible actually mentions these things, and so do other ancient texts mention that this is exactly what we're seeing going on. So I'm going to read these to you, because I think a lot of you may or may not have ever read the scripture or any of these scriptures. And so let's do it right now. Revelation 12. In verse 7, it says, "And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought against his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out unto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night." And this is interesting how it connects this war with the kingdom of heaven coming. And if you guys remember in the Bible, Jesus was always saying, tell them the kingdom of heaven's at hand, the kingdom of heaven's at hand. And it's interesting to me that they had to cast out Satan and his angels to seem like, in verse 10, it seems like it's saying, like, for this to be possible, this had to happen, because maybe he was accusing, maybe he's the big snitch on the block, and without him, we don't need that snitch up there accusing the brethren over and over again. I don't know. Maybe Michael got tired of it and kicked him out of heaven, but it's very interesting that it talks about this. And some would say this hasn't happened yet. Some would say it's long ago. And all I can say is that maybe not. We're going to see. We're going to look at this a little deeper, and feel free whenever you have time, pick up your Bible and read this stuff. It's fun. You can engage with the scripture, and I'll give you guys, for those of you that don't have a background in studying ancient texts or biblical texts or anything, when you read something and you see a word in that scripture, you can always go back and reference all these other words, and they're almost always usually connected with the first time they're mentioned. It's really, really interesting. So get yourself a Bible and Google or something like that, and you can go back and look at all that stuff. It's pretty amazing what you might find in all of these ancient texts. And then on Revelation 12, this is where where I got the idea of 33 million angels. In Revelation 12, it says, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. So this is in the same chapter as the verse I read before, but it's talking about the same great red dragon, but it talks about his tail taking 1/3 of the stars down to earth with it. And biblically, there is many of the verses are synonymous. When it says stars, it's synonymous actually with angels. And even in the Book of Enoch, stars and angels are synonymous almost always. Usually it'll be an luminary or something if it's not an angelic presence. So it says he took 1/3 of them. And so we know that 1/3 of 100 is 0.333. And what's left is 0.666. Well, in the scriptures here, it says in Revelation 5:11, it says, "And I beheld, and I heard the voice of many angels round about the throne, and the beast, and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000, and thousands of thousands." So there was a lot. There was more than 10,000 times 10,000, but when you multiply 10,000 times 10,000, you get 100 million. And 1/3 of that is 33 million. And so this is where this idea that there is possibly, just from this war that happened in heaven, not to mention the one that I'm going to talk about it before that happened, there was 10,000 or 33 million possibilities there. Because according to Revelation and John's witness, when he saw the angels around the throne, he witnessed over 100 million angels. That's a lot of angels. SGH 741, thank you. I appreciate it so much. Blessings to you for that. And so this is interesting, though, the idea that there's that many. And we know that, of course, we're told anyway that there's 7 billion people or more on this world. So when you think about it, 33 million is a pretty big portion. It's as big as a huge city, but it's possible that they're here. And when I say this, I want to be clear that I don't believe, and I don't know this. This is just speculation to the fullest extent. And I know there's a lot of people that'll be very dogmatic about what they believe about this. A lot of people that have stories that they like to tell about these things, but we have to be careful that we can't really believe everything we hear. You have to know that anything you hear from anybody that says they've experienced it or they're a bloodline of one of these, there's a chance that what they're saying is complete bull. And so taking their advice and word for what they're saying isn't always the best option. And in fact, a lot of these people are going through a psychosis, and that's why they're talking about like this stuff, because a lot of this stuff isn't a reality in real life. But when we see this incursion, this idea that there's all of these people wandering around this earth that are possibly a part of it, you have to realize that what I was going to say is that some of them are good. Some of them, when I say some of them are good, some of them probably want to repent. Some of them probably don't want to have any part in it. And that's just a speculation maybe. But there's probably some that are indifferent, but there's also some that are definitely evil, that are out here doing everything they can because they want to have another war with God, because they think they can win with their general. They think they can win. And the idea that some of them are good, probably not out of the fallen angels, but there's definitely good angels that are out there. In fact, in every religious text, every ancient text, there were interactions with these entities when they came down, some good, some bad. And even in the Bible, it says that sometimes we're entertaining angels unaware. And I see that there might be trolls in the mod. I apologize, guys. I don't have a mod. It's just me in here. So just block them, man. If you don't want to see them, block them, because eventually everybody blocks these trolls anyway. They just probably a teenage kid or something like that, or I don't know what they might be. I mean, there's no telling what the person on the other end of that is. I would just block them. And if I can go through the chat here in a minute, if I find them, I'll get rid of them and kick them, give them a timeout out of there for a minute so they don't bug everybody. Just so you guys know, there's like almost 2,000 people in the chat. Please don't be annoying. That's just so annoying. And if you're here to do that, like, I get it. You're having fun, maybe. To you, you're a teenage kid. You're having fun. You like to play on the chat. Whatever. Just know that you're probably going to get blocked by everybody. So there you go. But other than that, thank you guys for joining me. I'm still going. They've got plenty more to come, so please stay tuned. I just want to let you guys know that if you have a question, put it in all caps. And when I get a chance, when I get a break in this, I might take a few second break in between each subject here. to talk about it. I'll try to answer those questions. But if you do a super chat, then I'll definitely get to that question for you guys. So, anyways, here we go. And so I want to explain this too, because there's a lot of people that have different ideas about eschatology. And I would say that no matter if you're in the camp that you're before the rapture or before the tribulation, if you believe we're pre-tribulation, pre-mark of the beast, pre-beast, or if you believe Satan's little season, there's the belief that the angels of the devil are here should still be prevalent, because according to, let me show you this. This is how easy, it's pretty easy to see this if you actually look at it just real simply. But in Revelation 17, it says the two beasts, one from the sea and one from the water, happened. That's what happens in Revelation 17. Revelation 18 and 19 is the fall of the Babylonian system. And those chapters are continuations of 17, because at the very, very first verse, you can read, and after these things. So you have this happens, and then they separate it with another chapter, and it says, and after these things, boom, and after these things, boom. And then in Revelation 20, you have the chaining of Satan. So if you believe that Satan's chained, then you would have to believe that we are during the millennial reign right now, during the 1,000-year reign, if you believe Satan's chained. If you don't believe he's chained, then you have to be Satan's little season or pre-trib, because he doesn't, from what I can tell, he does not get chained, because Revelation 18:19, in talking about the mark of the beast and all the beast kingdoms and rejoicing over Babylon being slain and everything, and then the angels take hold, they take Satan, they bind him for 1,000 years, and then he's released to deceive the nations once again. Some people will believe we're in that time. Some people believe we're in pre-trib. And either way, both ways are deceitful times, deceitful big time, to the point to where a lot of people won't understand what's going on. But either way, we have fallen entities here on earth. So this is one possibility of the entities that are here with us, because I'll tell you this, when I look at some of these people and I understand what it takes to do what they do, I'm by no means as talented as many of these people. And I do believe that in order to get to a level to where some of these people get, you either have to be possessed by a devil, or you have to be possessed by the Holy Spirit. One of those two things, because there are certain things that humans are capable of and certain things they're not. And I do believe that, and the older I get, the more I believe that. I used to think that maybe I'm just young, stupid, and think that that's a possibility. It couldn't possibly be the case. But it does seem that certain people have a supernatural ability to like almost never sleep and almost constantly be in the middle of every major thing that's always happening. And on top of that, some of them are just supernaturally gifted with all kinds of different things. Now, it could be human. It could be that. I mean, I'm not going to rule that out. But in my mind, the older I get, the more I see people being able to elevate in a way that seems almost supernatural. That, to me, is suspicious, to say the least. All right. I don't see any caps right now, so I'm going to move on to the next one. So the other incursion we're going to talk about happens in Genesis 6 and Enoch 6. And I'm going to make the argument that these angels are actually back here on earth as well. They are here, not they weren't ever left earth, but they're out of their chains, and they've been allowed to make it here on earth. This is my argument. I'm going to make that argument. Some of you probably watched the broadcast that I did, I don't know, last week when I was talking about the angels in the Euphrates, and so I'm going to be able to pull a little bit of that together as well. So here we go. I'm going to do this. I'm going to play this video. I forgot I had this video here. You guys are going to enjoy this. For those of you that don't know who this guy, his name's Tyler Hansen, I believe is his name. He goes by, he's got kind of a name, what is his name? Fittest Flat Earther. And I see him all the time on Facebook And if you're not a flat earther, that's fine. Ignore the flat earther thing. I know for me, when I see people calling themselves flat earthers all the time, and it's like their ego or who they are, it kind of makes me cringe a little bit too. But it doesn't mean that I can't listen to what the dude's saying. He's got some interesting stuff. And I'm not saying that flat earth is cringe. I'm just saying, like, people that make it their identity, sometimes to me it can be. But this guy, I've only seen a few of his videos, so I can't really judge him, but you guys need to see this one. This is really interesting because he caught on to exactly what I was talking about a couple weeks ago. I think he did this video, let's see, maybe a few days ago, but I was talking about this a couple weeks ago. And so he added some stuff to it that clicked and made me realize that, like, we have to talk about this. We have to revisit this 2-year-old topic that I talked about before. So here we go.
The Book of Enoch equates with stars with angels, particularly fallen angels. And well, what do we call the celebrities of today? We call them stars, and we give them a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And you want to know something interesting about the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Well, a performer can have more than one star recognizing their separate achievements in more than one category. But the initial group was only that of 199. Some were selected for repeat recognition. So I wonder if that means that George Clooney and Cary Grant have their each unique separate star. Go watch that video if you haven't. You know who else has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Larry Hagman. You know, Larry Hagman from Dallas and I Dream of Jeannie, who just happens to bear a very similar resemblance to Tom Brady. So similar that when you push their heads together, you see that they have the exact same butt chin in the exact same place, minus Tom's a little fitter now. And there's more. They just happen to share these unique markings on their face in the exact same place and the exact same alignment right on their cheek there. Oh, and you know the funny thing about Tom? He sure is referred to as a star who cares a lot. Starcast, star. There's a star behind him. He's holding a star. But you know what's even better is he was chosen in the 6th round behind 6 other quarterbacks. 6'6". You know what pick he was?
Anxious time for so many football players who are college stars. Among the last 6 picks taken.
Oh, and speaking of disobedient Elohim, I wonder what Elon has to say in his most Elon things he's ever said. There's 199, by the way. And boy, if you just turn that 99 upside down. Oh, and you know the funny thing about Elon is he seems to have some very similar markings in the exact same spot on top of the ones up on his eye as the original rocket man of NASA, Werner von Braun.
Interesting, man. Whoa, that's a little crazy to the people that have never seen anything like this. You might be thinking, wow, these guys have lost their minds, but man, we'll give it a chance. Stick your feet in. The water's pretty warm, and then dip yourself in, because I'm telling you, there's some wild stuff here. And this Elon thing right here, this is crazy to me, because I don't know if you guys know this or not. I know that some of you do, because some of you have listened to some of my content since 2010. That's how long. And Elon Musk is actually mentioned in a book by Werner von Braun as leading a colony of people to space, and particularly in Mars. And if you guys don't know how much Elon is into Mars, then man, look it up. This dude wants to go there. Like, even Donald Trump cited something about colonizing Mars in 2025 this year. So this year is wrapping up, but I'm telling you, the things just keep on piling up and getting weirder. The more that gets exposed, the more crazy it's going to get as time goes on. So wild stuff. Tell me what you guys thought about that video. I got more to go here, guys, so stay tuned, because this is really, really interesting. This gets really interesting. So we have this other incursion, Genesis 6. It talks about the sons of God came to the daughters of men and bore children to them. It's Genesis chapter 6 and 4, I think. But you can go there and look at the whole chapter. This is when God's like, okay, I'm tired of it. There's giants on the earth in those days, it said, and also after that, God doesn't want to bear with man anymore. And so he says that my spirit won't strive with man. Their life will be 120 years. So in 120 years later, boom, we have the flood. It doesn't mean they lived and that was how their lifespan. It just means that there was only 120 years left on the earth because the flood was coming after that. And this is actually paramount. This is interesting because they have the 22 angels. And I think Rob Skiba came out with this first. And I want to give a shout out to him, even though he's passed. Rob was a friend of mine, spent time at his house. He spent time at my house, and we did probably 50 to 100 broadcasts together at some point in time. But he's the first one I ever saw that came out with this. And there was 22 leaders of this rebellion, of these 200 that went up on top of Mount Hermon, and they were called the Watchers. And interestingly enough, if you look, there's an observatory up there now on Mount Hermon by the UN called the Observatory. So these Watchers maybe are still watching. Maybe this has something to do with it. Not sure. Weird coincidence, though, nonetheless. So anyways, we'll go on. This is something that I saw, like I would say last year. I think I had mentioned something about this. Maybe it was last year. It might have been on that show I did 2 years ago. But there's roughly 200. They're saying roughly, but almost exactly, if not exactly 200 craters that are huge in the earth right now, that are here, that have come from some kind of comet or whatever the case may be. I think it was actually this Tyler guy that actually had said something about the idea that they look like they landed straight down, not at a side, like you would imagine something that comes from space would land sideways, but almost like they are exactly straight down into the ground and made this massive impact into there. And this is crazy to me because that's almost exactly what the Bible says happened here. So let me read this. And tell you why. This is actually something that I forgot to mention when Tyler's video. He said, if you guys remember, 199 stars. 199, that number kept coming up. And the reason it's only 199 instead of 200 is because Azazel, as the scripture says, it doesn't say here, I got the wrong verse here, but the scripture says that Azazel was bound forever. The only ones that were going to be released were Semyaza and his associates. So the rest, 199 of them, were bound to get released in 70 generations. And this is what this this is what this says in Enoch here. Book of Enoch 10:12. And when their sons had slain one another, and they had seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valley of the earth. So and I made the differentiation on the last broadcast that I did on here about the 4 angels in Euphrates. I showed that actual reference on there to where it says that Azazel was bound to forever, but Semyaza and his associates were the only ones that were allowed out. So that 199 number, I don't know if Tyler knows this or not, but it's very significant. It makes more sense than if it were 200. That's mind-blowing to me. And if anybody knows them, tell them that there were only 199 that were allowed to continue on. So maybe he'll get that together. And also, I would like to interview that dude. So if you guys do know him, have him hit me up. And then we're going to read Book of Enoch 51, 5-6. And it says, And in those days the angels shall return and hurl themselves to the east upon the Parthians and Medes. They shall stir up the kings so that a spirit of unrest shall come upon them, and they will rouse from their thrones, that may break forth as lions from their lairs and as hungry wolves among the flocks. And so these, just as Satan, are going to be ready. They're going to be trying to make war. They're going to be out here doing things. So this particular group of angels, when they're released, they are ready to rock. Whereas the other angels, Satan knows his times are short, but if I remember correctly, which I know I do in Revelation 20, it says that they bound Satan. It didn't say that they bound the angels in Revelation 20. It says that they took the chains and took the dragon and bound him for 1,000 years. So that would mean that his angels were probably still here, I guess, unless there's another verse that says that they were bound as well with him during that time period, which there might be. You can look it up and tell me if there is. So that's an interesting correlation there as well. So we have 2 different sets of angels, it seems. And then 70 generations, for those of you that are wondering, how in the world does he think they're already out? Why would he think that? There's been a lot of people that have done work on this. I think and I'm giving Rob Skiba a shout out again on this because he did some work on this, and he put the time period to somewhere around the early 1900s. And that's exactly what math I had come into as well. And around the 1900s, this is the time period. If you think about this, people went from riding the horse and buggy, riding camels, walking, taking old ships with oars and sails across the ocean, to now we're flying jets across the world. We're driving in Porsches, Lamborghinis, Ford Escorts. We got motorcycles. We got people calling each other from across the world. We've got everything. I mean, we've got black mirrors in our hands that we can teleport our own facial features to another person all the way across to Australia if we wanted to. This is how advanced we've come since the 1900s. Also, in the 1940s is when you started seeing more of the weird crafts, in World War II, eras like that. So the 40s, things really, really ramped up. I mean, just ramped up in a big way. So there's definitely nobody that can argue with that. You might be able to argue with it if you want, but I don't think anybody listened to you. So Matthew 1:17. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David into the carrying away of Babylon are 14 generations, and from the carrying away into Babylon and Christ are 14 generations. So if you have two more sets of 14 generations, that's going to equal 70. So we're almost there, all the way to Christ. And then we know there are at least 13 generations between Enoch and Abraham, and this means that after Jesus, there may only be 14 or 15 generations left before the release of the Watchers. So that's after him. So there might have been only 14 or 15 generations after Jesus. So where does that put us? I mean, if you do the math, there is a verse that tells you exactly how many years are in a generation in the New Testament, which I brought up in an older broadcast, but that takes us right around to the 1900s. And this is something really strange as well, where I thought maybe, just maybe, a different group, or maybe the same group, somebody came here around the founding of our country and the founding of the I don't even want to say the word because it sounds hokey, but the Illuminati, for lack of a better term. This is what we're talking about here, the Bavarian Illuminati. It says, if you use well-documented biblical history, which I did this math, I did this a while back, and I've continued. A lot of people have messaged me and said, listen, I did the math, I think you're dead on. Scholars have done the math, and it seems to be actually pretty stinking accurate, pretty close. It's hard. I mean, you can come to other numbers, I'm sure, but pretty close. If you come to the same calculations, you're going to come to this number. But it says the flood began in about 4,359 years ago in 1656 AM or 2348 BC. And that actually, forgive me, I forgot to change the text here. Let me start over here. The flood was actually pronounced in 1656 when God said there's going to be a flood, 120 years. Then 120 years later, you have 1776. So this slide's wrong. Don't screenshot it. My apologies. I meant to say not when it started, but when it actually was pronounced, the judgment was pronounced. And so 120 years after that is 1776 AM. And the letters AM are actually what it stands. I can't remember that exactly what it stands for, but that's what it means is the amount of years that have happened since dates started counting, since the first man. And this is biblical time, right? From the time of Adam all the way to 1776 years is when the flood happened. And like I said, in 1776, definitely something happened in our land, but different time period. Obviously, we're talking 1776 BC versus AD here in 1776. But I think that the numbers are always important. They always, if you guys ever watch any broadcast about people that do these numbers, the gematria, the numerology, it means everything to them. And on top of that, the spirits are able to manipulate these things. That's why you see so many connections with horoscopes, gematria, and everything when you see world events that happen. It's just like clockwork. There's one thing after another. You just keep seeing correlations. Numbers just keep popping up, like 33s, for instance, and all these different things. Well, 1776 is no different. You have the Bavarian Illuminati with Weishaupt starting that, and then you also have the beginning of the nation with the Declaration of Independence in the United States that happens on 1776 as well. And a lot of people believe that our country was founded by Christians. And yes, maybe 1600s, there were mainly Puritans that were over here, and there was other people. But in the 1700s came a whole new class of Freemasons, a class of occultists. John Adams was an agnostic. Ben Franklin was in the Hellfire Club, did horrible kind of stuff. Most of these guys, if you look at the way the whole country's laid out, you'll know otherwise. I mean, a lot of people are fooled by it, and they think that because it says in God we trust. But God, in general, is kind of a generic term. God just means Elohim. You could, when you say God, you could be talking about Lucifer. You could be talking about Yahweh. You could be talking about Zeus. You could be talking about any God you choose, lowercase g. It's a generic term for God in the English language. And so that's kind of the problem with that. And so you also see some interesting correlations too with our country. Almost every thing that we've built is occult in nature. I mean, let me just break this down for you a little bit here. This is a painting of Lucifer in 1797. You can look this up for yourself. If you don't believe me, 100% look it up and you're going to find it. This next to it is the Statue of Liberty. And these are the same faces, and they have the same thing. They're holding the torch up like Prometheus, giving the fire to humanity, giving Lucifer, giving the light to humanity. The Statue of Liberty, giving the light to humanity. And this is the statue that is in our harbor that welcomes all who are weary and all those people to come in. And if you look at catty corner to this, exactly diagonal from this picture right here, you have the foot and you have this chain. And if you look all the way towards the end of the foot of this chain on that left foot, on his left foot, you have this chain that is broken. And you wouldn't even really notice it had you not been looking really close, but it's broken. And I don't know what that means. You tell me what you think it means, but it's very, very interesting. And we also have the obelisk Washington Monument, which before it was in D.C., was in Egypt, in Rome, and in places that represented the worship of Osiris and the goddess. So this is where our country is. And I'm breaking one more picture down. Might as well. We got it up here. This is the apotheosis, and this sits across from the obelisk in the Capitol building in the rotunda. And there are 22 stars. If you look around this image here, you'll see gods, and you'll see George Washington, you'll see Poseidon, you'll see who knows what other gods you're going to see in there. You'll see all kinds, Pan, etc. Probably Diana in the District of Columbia. Who's Columbia? Look it up if you don't know. This is another rabbit hole for you to go down. But around there, 72 stars representing the nations in in Genesis chapter 10. After the, in Genesis, after, not Genesis 10, but after Babylon, after the dispersion of tongues, it says that God split the nations up, and he divided it according to the number of the 72. There were 72 sons of God, and he divided it up according to them, which sons of God, if you know what that means, that's B'nai, in the Hebrew it's Ha-Elohim, B'nai, or B'nai Elohim. And that means sons of God. And the only other times those are mentioned is in Job, where it talks about the sons of God being there during creation, and in Genesis, where it talks about the sons of God coming and mating with the daughters of men, and these giants were born unto them. So weird stuff, guys. I don't know what to make of all of it, but I will tell you right now that the more I learn, the more I'm thinking that this could be correct. And of course, we can't say for sure. I can't go and, take blood tests of these people or anything like that. But beware that you guys have to know this. You have to know this. And if you don't know this, maybe your children will know this, or you can teach them this. But there is an element trying to deceive you, and they could be more than human. They could be much older, much wiser, and have much more information than we'll ever have. And so it's very important to understand these things. It's easier not to be fooled by it. But look, open your eyes, look around. Tell me what you see. I love to see the comments, people saying, look, check this out. This is what I saw after watching your program. And look, guys, I accepted the light of Christ into my life in 2010. And it has opened my eyes to everything that's going on in the world. And I hope that you guys can join me. If you haven't, please do, because I'm telling you, this world's getting dark, and the light is something that we really, really need. We need Christ in our hearts, and we need that. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to this broadcast. And I'm going to ask you to pound the like button. And please, if you like this at all, hit the subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye. Maybe goodbye if I can find the outro button. Here we go. What if 33 million fallen angels didn't disappear and they're walking right here on earth with us today, hiding in plain sight,
This historic moment belongs to the people.
influencing power and shaping our society,
Unwavering resolve.
controlling the world you think you know?
The world keeps lying, but he won't retreat on his quest for truth. Yeah. Truth, quest for truth. They can't stop me, they can't block me. Moving through, got that fire, they can't block me. Quest for truth, breaking chains, making waves. That's what I